And that's something that we cannot successfully achieve in a fractured global environment, because it takes a collaboration, a combination, including leveraging the private sector. And one of the things I think was brilliant about, for example, COP26 in Glasgow or COP28 in Dubai, was bringing in masses of representatives of the private sector to start accessing pools of private capital in order to produce some of the solutions to really intractable challenges facing us. So climate and environment, the big money that is going to produce sustainable infrastructure, sustainable ways of having transport. That's not going to come from government. It's not going to come from the United Nations Overseas Development Assistance budget. That's going to come from innovators in the private sector and capital being invested in that. I think the path to the SDGs, if we're serious about the SDGs and 2030, and we as the UK are, and in Indonesia, delivery on the SDGs domestically has been stellar. It is something of which Indonesians should be enormously proud. As a global community, though, we are off track. And to get there, yes, I think government spend and Overseas Development Administration admin spend has got a real part in that. But actually, it's going to be innovation and pools of capital from the private sector pulling in order to develop ways of educating people, bringing healthcare, developing infrastructure that's going to raise people out of poverty at the moment. So I think we're going back to that multipolar, complex web of issues, Gita.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? I'm just curious as to what your views are on how do you think Indonesia ought to look at. I think you're right that the kind of unilateralism that Putin is doing, but similarly, the kind of unilateralism that Israel is doing to Gaza is not acceptable, right? And I'm just curious as to what your views are with respect to how you think Indonesia, as the largest Muslim majority country, the third largest democracy, ought to do more. I mean, I personally am, am in a camp that believes that, we could be an interlocutor sometime in the future, maybe not now. But how do you think we could help ourselves in becoming an interlocutor for certain situations that are global in nature or in scale, such as what we're seeing in Ukraine and what we're seeing in West Asia?
I think Indonesia has a really authentic voice on many of these discussions. As you say, as a democracy that is the world's largest, most populous Muslim country, but also as a guardian of one of the three relevant global forests that is the lungs of the planet, so not just in the geopolitical space, but also in the climate change space, and as a growing economy as well. What Indonesia has done over the last 10 years in terms of its infrastructure development, in terms of an average of 5%, apart from the pandemic, 5% GDP growth, that's a story that is worth being seen at a global level.